Obinna lay on a cold mat in a small, empty room, his body weak and trembling. He had once been a rich man, but now, as sickness consumed him, he was all alone. The money was gone, the friends he had entertained with drinks and laughter had long disappeared, and the wife he had once loved lay in a grave, her heart broken by his cruelty. But it wasn't always like this. Years ago, Obinna was a poor young man in the village. He had nothing but his dreams. At the age of 23, he met Udoka, a beautiful girl of 19. Udoka was kind, gentle, and full of hope. Despite Obinna's poverty, she loved him deeply. They got married, and together, they faced the harsh realities of life. They worked hard, taking on any job they could find. Udoka would wake up before dawn, her hands raw from farming, and Obinna would walk miles to the market, carrying heavy loads for little pay. But they had each other, and that made them strong. Their love was like a warm fire that kept them going even on the coldest nights. After 5 years of struggling, things began to change. Obinna started a small business, and slowly, he began to make money. The days of hunger and worry started to fade. He built a house, bought new clothes, and life became easier. Udoka was overjoyed, grateful that their hard work had paid off. But with wealth came change. Obinna, once humble and loving, became proud. He started spending time with wealthy men, drinking and talking about all the things money could buy. He stopped noticing the little things that used to make him happy, like Udoka's smile or the way she always had food ready for him when he came home. As the years passed, Obinna began to treat Udoka differently. He stopped giving her money, leaving her to beg for small things, like food for their children. When she asked for help, he would shout at her or ignore her completely. The love that once burned bright had turned cold. Udoka was heartbroken, but she stayed with him, hoping that the man she had married would return. But things only got worse. Obinna found another woman, Amoka, and soon she was pregnant. Without any care for the wife who had stood by him through everything, Obinna married Amoka and brought her into their home. Udoka and her children were pushed aside, forgotten like old clothes. Obinna's wealth, once a blessing, had become a curse. He spent his money on Amoka and other women, neglecting his family. Udoka fell sick. The long years of suffering had worn her down. She was too weak to walk, and with no money, she couldn't go to the hospital. She begged Obinna for help, but he turned his back on her, saying it was her own fault if she was sick. As Udoka's condition worsened, Amoka became the new mistress of the house. She treated Udoka and her children with disdain, making life even harder for them. Udoka, once full of life, died quietly one night, her heart finally giving up. Obinna didn't shed a tear. Instead, he sent their 3 children out of the house, saying he had no room for them anymore. Amarachi, the eldest, was just a teenager, but she had to care for her younger siblings. They wandered from place to place, with no home and no one to turn to. But fortune has a way of smiling when you least expect it. One day, Amarachi met a wealthy man who took pity on her. He listened to her story and was moved by her courage and the suffering she had endured. He decided to help her, giving her and her siblings a place to stay and providing them with everything they needed. Obinna, meanwhile, was spiraling downward. The money he had made was gone, wasted on women who no longer cared about him. Amoka, seeing that the wealth had dried up, left him without a word, taking the last of his money with her. Sick and penniless, Obinna was left alone. He tried to find his children, hoping they would take him in, but when they saw him, all they could see was the man who had abandoned their mother and thrown them out. Though they forgave him in their hearts, they could not accept him back into their lives. They had learned to live without him. Obinna died alone, in the same small room where he had once celebrated his wealth. There was no one to mourn him, no one to bury him. The man who had once had everything, lost it all because he forgot the value of love and loyalty. In the end, it wasn't the money or the power that mattered. It was the love of a woman who had stood by him when he had nothing, a love he threw away. And when it was all gone, there was nothing left but regret. Obinna's death was marked by silence, his absence barely noticed in the village where he once flaunted his wealth. The house that had once been filled with laughter now stood empty, a sad reminder of all that was lost. The villagers whispered about him, remembering how he had risen from nothing and then lost everything. Some pitied him, but most saw his fate as just. Amarachi, now a young woman, took on the role of mother and protector to her younger siblings. The wealthy man who had rescued them became like a father to them, offering not just shelter, but an education and the chance to rebuild their lives. Amarachi thrived, growing into a strong and wise woman, determined never to repeat the mistakes of her father. Years passed, and the story of Udoka and Obinna became a cautionary tale. Mothers would tell their daughters about the dangers of pride and the importance of loyalty. They would speak of Udoka's quiet strength and how, despite her suffering, she remained true to her children until the end. In time, Amarachi and her siblings built lives of their own, filled with love and happiness, carrying with them the lessons they had learned from their mother's sacrifice and their father's downfall. They never returned to their old home, leaving it to decay as a symbol of the life they had left behind. In their hearts, they forgave Obinna, understanding that his downfall was a result of his choices, but they never forgot the pain he caused. His death was a reminder that true wealth lies not in money or possessions, but in the love and loyalty of those who stand by you when you have nothing.